You originally studied computer engineering before transitioning to writing.
Yes.
What inspired you to make this shift?
Oh, it was like one of those big life-changing things that happened. You know, life doesn't always turn out like we plan.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this quote by the Swedish writer Willy Kyrklund that I like. And it says that human beings, we have anchors or things to hold on to. And if they are outside ourselves, we're lucky. If we have them inside ourselves, we're rich. And when all the anchors start to disappear, we can discuss human condition. And I think what happened to me was that all these anchors and things I had to hold on to started to disappear. And I got ill, I had to move home. I was in a relationship that ended, and so everything just disappeared, and I had to sort of create an anchor inside myself, and that was writing. So yeah, I couldn't turn outside to look for things to hold on to, and I just had to create something.
So when you started writing, you had no financial concerns, but it's all about initiation or self.
I was very isolated by myself. I couldn't study, I couldn't be with my friends, and I didn't have a smartphone because it was before that, thank God. And I started reading a lot because I could read. You know, I think that if you isolate a person for a long time, eventually they will start writing. Yeah.
Your debut novel, The Faster I Walk, The Smaller I Am, explores themes of loneliness and mortality with a distinct narrative voice. Can you share how the story evolved and what inspired you to write it? You partially actually answered that.
Yeah.
But for example, why did you choose an old lady as a protagonist?
I was in my 20s, but I actually felt very old when I started writing it. Much older than I feel like now, actually. You know, I think Virginia Woolf, she says that you can't be alone for more than this amount of time before your mind starts to think about death, starts to think about mortality, that this life isn't forever. And I was thinking a lot about that. And because I realized that my life would be very different from what I originally thought with my engineering studies and everything. And I think I put a lot of myself in this old character.
But you yourself, you were thinking about death? Like suicide or just the concept?
No.
Concept of that.
The concept of that. Yeah. And because it felt like I didn't have a life, because I was like living like an old person, just being at home and not.
I see.
Yeah. So it was more the idea that we were going to die one day. What do I want to do before?
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Scandinavian literature often carries a unique sense of place and identity, which are visible in your works. But at the same time, your works have gained worldwide recognition. When the Turkish reader is considered, the setting, lives, and identities are totally different. How do you see your work fitting within the Scandinavian literary tradition? And what might be the reason for its resonance with readers from such diverse cultural contexts?
Yeah, that's fascinating.
That's interesting.
I wonder too, coming here and meeting people that can relate to the book is amazing. I'm not the best person to sort of categorize it and say how it fits in with literature. I think that's more
Of an academic job, okay.
Yes, yeah, I just write the books and then other people can find out how they fit in. But no, it concerns with just maybe loneliness is like it's something we all have in common. We're at the end of the day, we're all alone in.
Maybe your characters are carrying out this universal trait, such as loneliness or existential crisis or something like that. But I am also really interested in why are Turkish people interested in Scandinavian literature.
Yeah, what do you think?
Point is, yes, I think they also look for the meaning of life, and they also feel like they also start thinking about that a lot.
Mm.
But the society, culture, all of it, the geography, all of them are totally different, and I don't know why it's very popular. I'm interested in loneliness, that kind of isolation, and this minimal language and narrative techniques. That's why I love Scandinavian literature, but I don't know why it's so popular in Turkey. That's why I'm asking this question to you.
No, but you know the character, she's an old woman and she lives in a building with a lot of other people and coming here from the airport in Istanbul and you see these big buildings with all these people in them and I'm sure that they experience loneliness too, even if they're surrounded by other people like Matea. So yeah.
But how do you design your characters? Your narratives often delve into the inner lives of your characters with remarkable intimacy, but actually you don't really show the inner feelings of these characters. They act like a little bit frozen. Maybe the term is correct. And how do you approach crafting such deeply personal perspective? On the surface, they are like two-dimensional characters. They do not feel anything, but at the same time, there's this psychological deepness in your characters. Are you trying to design the characters before you start writing, or what is your approach about characters?
Yeah, no, this novel, The Faster I Walk, The Smaller I Am, which is my first. So, and I had never thought about writing a novel before this. And the reason why I wanted to write a novel was I didn't feel like a human being, but I thought a novel has to be written by a human. So if I'm able to write a novel, I will start to feel like a human being again. That was the idea I had. I didn't know what my life would look like, but I knew it would be different after having written a novel. Something would have to change because of it. And so I didn't have an idea of how to do it. But I think that I just had to get to know the character was the main task for me writing this novel. She's not doing much. She only goes to the grocery store. She's inside her apartment. She talks a bit to one person and he asks her about the time. So very little happens.
Yes.
Like
Very minimal.
no action.
Yeah.
It's all inside her. And at first she was sort of trying to be funny when I was writing about her. And then I thought, well, she has no one to be funny to. She has no one to tell jokes to. So I realized that she's not funny. She's more weird because she's been alone in her head for so long. And she has, after her husband Epsilon dies, she has no one to sort of correct her thoughts. So they can go in all directions. And so I spent like a few years just trying to figure out who she is. And then when I knew, that was when it became a novel. Because then I was like, okay, I know what she would do if she had to go to a Christmas party because I know her. And then it was sort of easy to write about her. I knew what she would say. I knew what she would do. So the writing process the reason it took many years was because I had to get to know her.
Mm-hmm. Your works often center on themes of minimality, solitude, and the art of slowing down. In a world that feels increasingly fast-paced, digitally connected, disposable relationships, and temporary values, how do you perceive the role of a writer? Do you see literature as a form of resistance to this speed? And you don't use social media, right?
I don't have social media, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So do you see this literature as a form of resistance to this speed and technology, digital age, or as a space for reflection and reconnection?
Yeah.
The function of literature.
Yeah. You know, time is something completely different reading a novel versus, I don't have social media, but I do have internet, of course. So I read the news, and the more stressed I am, the more time I spend on my phone. Then time goes by in a completely different way than if you sit down and like spend an hour reading a book. It's completely different than an hour just reading the news on your phone. So my answer is yes.
Yes, but do you suggest this to other people? Stop using these
No,
devices, just read some books and get a new time zone.
I don't think I'm in the position to tell anyone what to do. I have more than enough with trying to do better myself.
And which writers or works have had the most significant impact on your writing in fiction?
I think after quitting my engineering studies, I started to read in a different way. Like I had read Kafka, The Process before, but then I just thought it was scary. And then I read it again, and suddenly it was funny to me. So it during those years of just reading a lot, becoming a better reader. Yeah. So he was important, but also like Dostoevsky. Because I hadn't read all the writers you should read before.
You were not much of a reader before starting writing, or?
I had been reading, but more like my parents read to me, more like for entertainment.
I see.
And then when those years at university, it was so much to read that had to do with studying that I didn't have time reading fiction. So it was only when I quit my studies I really started reading fiction again. And so that was sort of in my mid-20s I started to read fiction a lot. And yeah. And then I started to read like the big writers that you should read when you're probably 17, but I started a bit late. So yeah.
What would you suggest for young writers who are at the beginning of their writing path or career?
It's such a long process for most writers, I think, that you had to have that stamina just to stay in there. And I sent my manuscript to publishers and got turned down several times before someone published it. So
they should be regretful now.
Yeah. But I did work at it after, so it's not like it was the same that ended up being printed. But for me, and I think for most writers, it's a long process, the first novel. So my only advice is just to
they should be patient.
Yeah, patient and read a lot, because suddenly you read a book that makes you realize, or it's just like it switches something in your mind that makes you realize that this is how I can do it. It makes you realize something about your own writing. And that happens to me now as well, that I read something and suddenly I understand how this novel that I've been thinking about for 3 years. It's not that I'm doing the same thing. It just makes me see my own work in a different light. Yeah.
As far as I know, you publish some short stories, but you do not have a short story collection. Is it right?
Yeah, I don't have a short story collection.
So, do you have a distance with this genre, short story, or are you trying to avoid short story? Do you have any plans about publishing a short story collection?
I would love to write short stories. I've only written one that I'm happy with, and it took me just as long as writing a novel. So, I don't know, maybe I just don't have the talent for it or something. But I don't know, it hasn't come to me yet, but maybe one day it will. But my novels are quite short though, so yeah, I think I have one very big book, but then all the others have 120 pages.
And you mean they're already like short stories?
Yeah, like in the middle between a novel and a short story. But I think like that, it feels like that's my format, like these short novels. That's most suitable way for me to tell a story. 120 pages. Yeah.
Do you have any writing rituals, like I'm only writing in the mornings or that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think that I have changed quite a bit in those well, it's been like 15 years now. So for many years, it was just me writing, and then writing in the mornings would be my favorite thing, with the coffee and just before the world tells you who you are, and before reading your emails, before seeing anyone.
But morning like 9 a.m. or 5 a.m.?
Yeah, no, more like 7.
Okay.
Yeah, 7-ish would be good.
Okay.
Yeah, just get up, sit down with the coffee and start writing. But now I have children and they wake up so early. So no, it's more after having sent them to kindergarten, and then sometimes it feels like it's been a day already when when I'm sitting down to write. But now I'm very happy if I'm starting like before 9 o'clock, and I love a bit when the house is empty and it's just me. Yeah.
Dostoevsky or Tolstoy?
Dostoevsky.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
What's a book you wish you had written?
The Stranger by Camus.
If you could invite 3 writers or directors, living or dead, to a dinner party, who would they be?
Oh, well, it's a director, and because we talked about directors earlier, I started to think about Lars von Trier.
Oh, he's not a good guy for a dinner party, I think.
Yeah, no, it would be very scary, but a bit fascinating as well. Oh, it's difficult. Because, the writers I like the most, I'm also a bit scared of, because I think they are so brilliant. Yeah, okay, Kafka. He would be good.
Which movie or TV show do you find yourself rewatching over and over?
I really don't rewatch things a lot, but Kill Bill.
Oh,
Yeah.
Tarantino. Nice.
When I need some
How about song or an album? Do you listen to any song or album while writing?
Yeah, I do. I have them on repeat. Well, it's been a while now, and I think it's because I'm surrounded by so much noise normally. Yeah.
Okay.
So now I just like to have it quiet.
Okay. If you weren't a writer, what would you be?
If I wasn't a writer, what do you call it in English? A midwife?
Yeah.
Like deliver babies?
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. No, I've always been fascinated with like a new human being coming to the world. Yeah.
Last question. Which country would you like to live in?
Turkey.
Oh, wow.